So the human brain and its associated mental capacities evolved to assist self-preservation. Okay, so our human brain is involved to help us survive. Thus, the capacity to make aesthetic judgments is an adaptation to past environments in which humans lived. And so I'm thinking, okay, so now that we can make aesthetic judgments is an adaptation to past environments. So I'm kind of like, okay, so are we assuming that we need to have aesthetic judgments in order to survive? Curious. So an individual's aesthetic judgments must be evaluated in terms of the extent to which they promote the survival of the individuals. Okay, so what is our conclusion here, Shelby?
Sorry, is it the capacity to make aesthetic judgments is an adaptation to past environments in which humans lived?
That's actually our subsidiary conclusion, because we use that to then support this, right? We say so we say like, because of this, then this. So our main conclusion is, so an individual's aesthetic judgment must be evaluated in terms of how much it promotes the survival of that individual. Okay, so when I read this, I was like, okay, like who gets, like, why, like, what is, I was like really, I guess like morbid, and I was like, well, why do we care about surviving? Maybe we're going to judge our aesthetic judgments based on some other definition or some other reasoning, right? But if I'm going to strengthen this, I'm going to say that maybe we should always judge something or evaluate something based on its ability to help us survive. That's my prediction going into this. So as I go through the questions, it says, A, all human adaptations to past environments were based on the human brain and its associated mental capacities. Okay, well, that doesn't explain why aesthetic judgments should be evaluated in the intent and how much they help us survive. So I'm going to cross A off. B says human capacities that do not contribute to the biological success of the human species cannot be evaluated. All right, cool. But just because these things cannot be evaluated, that doesn't mean that aesthetic judgment should be evaluated based on how much they help us succeed. That just means these other things can't even be evaluated. So we can cross off B. C says, if something develops to serve a given function, the standard by which it must be judged is how well it serves that function. I really like C, because it's saying like, if aesthetic judgment developed to help us survive, the standard by which we judge aesthetic judgments is how well it helps us survive. So I like C. D says judgments that depend on individual preference or taste cannot be evaluated as true or false. Okay, cool. Not what we're talking about. And then E says anything that enhances the proliferation of a species is to be highly valued highly. All right, so that just means that we should value aesthetic judgments. That's not telling us how we should be evaluated. And so that's why our answer here is going to be C. Does that make sense? How, like, if we apply this rule and we bring this in, this shows us why aesthetic judgments must be evaluated by how well they help us survive.
Was that a level 10 question, Nicole?
I don't think so.